Hello, this is Haiku for the next part of my Lost Caverns of Ixalan set review for Commons. Again, focused on the impact on the arena Pauper metagames. So, starting with the first card in blue, we have Ancestral Reminiscence. Basically draw spell with some discard utility. Unfortunately, it's too expensive and at sorcery speed, not playable. Brackish Blunder, an unsummon with upside. Still, I don't think quite playable, but getting close. Unfortunately, we don't have any explore, like things that take advantage of things exploring, so I don't think this is there. There's a lot of stuff in blue that wants to take advantage of random artifacts, so the fact that this could make the map token that you can use to use random artifact stuff is sort of interesting. But unsummons in general are kind of really only viable in like very tempo-y decks, and there's not really a blue deck that really is that tempo oriented. Cogwork Wrestler. We have this effect. It's a human 1/2 with flash, and that has the same ETB effect. So basically, it's just if the deck cares about artifacts rather than humans, then it would go there. But the human is actually more valuable, I think, because of One Mind and artifact. The artifact deck doesn't really care about having flash threats. Didact Echo, we already have a 4-mana 3/2 that draws a card on ETB, and it puts other cards into the graveyard. So I think that's much better than this. And that one flies as well. It just costs 2 blue instead of 4 in a generic. So yeah, I think that card's better and also doesn't see play. So this card will not see play. Frilled Caveworm, basically just a 4/5 if you can turn it on. Not what blue's looking for, not playable. Inverted Iceberg. So this is a cool card, definitely going to be playable. So on the front half is a 1-mana, or sorry, a 2-mana, draw 1, but it also mills a card, which is awesome. A lot of the blue decks really want to be able to mill. And that's just kind of good on its own. So it's a card that you can bounce. It's a card that you can use to tap to pay costs, like as far as tapping artifacts and stuff. And then late game, you can craft it with an artifact in your graveyard to create the Iceberg Titan, which is a 6/6, almost a Frost Titan-esque card where it taps the creature on attacks, but it doesn't keep it tapped for the opponent's next turn. And you can also untap artifact or creature on your end. The issue is, since the front half, the way that crafting works, I didn't talk about the crafting with the white card since it wasn't that good, but the way that crafting works is you're exiling it and then putting it into play. Since it's left play, it's gonna have Summoning Sickness again, in which case you can't attack the first turn. You flip the Titan, which is super annoying. Generally, once you're like investing the 6 mana into getting your end game in a control deck, you want to just end the game really quickly. And so having to wait a turn after you flip it and invested that mana to start attacking is really unfortunate, and I think is the biggest nerf against this card. But I think that, you know, having a random permanent artifact on your side of the battlefield that also, well, it cantripped, but it also filled your graveyard a little bit, is a pretty good draw. So it might still see play, even though the back half is has some flaws. So I would be hopeful if this could see play. Spoilers, this is like the one blue card that really I think is I'm a little bit excited about, that can have some possibility for constructive play. Marauding Brine Fang, basically a cycler that has, you know, it's a big body, so, you know, reanimated is okay, and the ward kind of helps protect it. But I think island cycling in the reanimated deck is not quite what you want. You probably want the creature, that the channel creature, the name escapes me right now, that can mana leak spell or an ability that also has Ward 3, and it's a slightly smaller creature on the backside, but I think that's probably more what you want. So unfortunately, I don't see this being a thing. I think if you're going to be reanimating a big creature, the creature has to ETB with another creature with it. So, you know, the white evoke creature that makes 2/1/1s that come alongside of it. There's and then I'll go over a new card in green that also is like a good reanimator target because it comes with its own protection basically from edict effects. Oaken Siren, a cool card. You know, you get in early and then you could use the mana to do other things. I just don't think this is quite what any deck is looking for. So unfortunately, it's not going to be playable. Araska Puzzle Door. So it's a 1 mana artifact that you can pay 1 and then basically what's that effect? Look, I guess there's no exact effect that this is called, but yeah, looking at top 2 and then putting 1 into hand and 1 to the graveyard. So it itself is going to the graveyard plus another card is going to the graveyard. So it's pretty cool effect for 2 mana, getting 2 cards, and then one of those is an artifact permanent into the yard. So it's pretty interesting, and it's pretty cheap. So I think this is going to be a player. This is probably the second kind of playable blue card. Yep. Out of Air, it's a harder to cast. This is a blue Essence Scatter. But then it also basically has 2 more colorless to be able to counter anything. I just down on blue right now, especially I'm down on Essence Scatter. I think if this was the opposite, and it still wouldn't have been that good. I think the other half needed to be 3 mana. Otherwise, it would. Yeah, I guess if 3 mana, it would have been a better cancel, and they are reluctant to print better cancels at common, but yeah, it's almost there, but I don't think there's quite enough space for Essence Scatter plus a counterspell variant in any of the Pauper formats on Arena. Pirate Hat. It's a 2 mana equipment. It only costs 1 if you equip it to a pirate, but there's not really a pirate deck, and the effect of drawing and discarding isn't too special. So unfortunately, I don't think this is good enough to see constructed play on Arena. Relic's Roar, 1 mana instant, makes a creature bigger, not playable. It doesn't draw a card. That's the issue. A 2 mana 1/2. So this is basically a color shifted. There was a vampire in original Innistrad that got downshifted to common. It was a 1/2 that explored on ETB. So you know, it's interesting, but unfortunately, I don't think it's playable. Even in the Ninja deck where you're bouncing this back and forth, it's still not quite good enough because it doesn't have any evasion built into it. Sage of Days, ETBs, you can rearrange the top of your deck, not worth it. Even though it fills up your graveyard, it's not worth it. And then Shipwreck Sentry, 2 mana 3/3. There's a ton of these that on a special condition they can attack as though they didn't have defender. This one's much easier to trigger. So basically blue has a 2 mana 3/3, but I don't think any blue decks that I can think of really want a 2 mana 3/3. Yeah, it's fine, but I just don't see any decks that want it in Explorer, Pauper. Even in standard Pauper, I can't think of any blue decks that would want this kind of effect. And Historic Pauper is just too quick that this won't be C play. Oops, I went backwards. Song of Stupefaction. we've had this effect before. It's not that good. It's not playable. Unlucky drop. It's interesting that it can hit artifacts as well, but not playable. Unfortunately, this effect is too expensive now. And Water and Scout, you know, a 3-mana Windrake, or I guess Windrake, that also creates a map token on ETB is sort of interesting, but even this effect I don't think is quite good enough. If we got the one that was 1 mana, 1/1 on ETB, make a map, that would have been really interesting, but at 3 mana, I don't think there's any deck that can play that. Waylaying Pirates, again, just a limited card, not constructed playable. So that finishes up blue. So basically the Inverted Iceberg as well as the Araska Puzzle Door, I think, are the kind of standout cards that might see some constructed Pauper play on Arena. And they might even be good enough for regular Pauper paper. All right, well, I will see you for the next color.